Okay, I'm right over here, Eric. I've got your poster up, and I see there's no. Well, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and download this because I want to get a closer look at it. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at this JPEG. There we go. That's more like it. Okay, let me just reduce this a little bit. Let's get it into the window. Okay, looking good. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Now, we go through the type. I can see that your rags are looking pretty good, but we still have some wavy patterns. Okay, so see this pattern right here, whoop, where it kind of swoops out like that. This one right here, where it goes whoop like that, swoops out like that. Definitely want to adjust that. You want to take a look at the course announcement. Actually, there are a bunch of videos in the course announcements on adjusting rags and using old style numerals and small caps. It's all in there. There's a bunch of tutorials. Just go ahead and take a look at those. My other recommendation is to jump back to week 4, specifically our discussion forum for week 4, where we defined those 18 rules of typography. So that we'll take a look at those as well. Right now, I think actually, I kind of see exactly why you did this. This is a good play right here. This is called clotheslining. It's where your baselines don't align. And that's perfectly fine. And I actually think it's an interesting technique here because you're not obstructing his eyes in the illustration with type. So I'm okay with that. I thought that was a pretty intuitive um, decision. Okay, so rags, we also have a few other things. So your numbers, numerals, we're going to either be using old style or reducing the scale, and that's covered in the course announcement tutorials as well. Use of N dash, that's N as in Nancy, to demarcate a number span. We also have a few other typographic compositions. I'm sorry, rules. Now, I'm not going to go through each one, but I will tell you this. Let's go ahead and take a look at what I will be looking at. This is what I'm going to be looking at, among others. But I'm going to be checking rags, use of small caps, use of old style numerals or reduced scale, proper use of dash, M dash, N dash, correct use of italics, optimal character count per line, superscript, hanging punctuations, orphans and widows. Now, keep in mind, these aren't all applicable, but if they are, you will be held accountable for it, right? Because these are things that we've studied in class. Appropriate use of negative space, orphans and widows, hanging punctuation, a designed timeline, a designed typographic composition for the laureate's name, and then all of the rules of type from week 4. Okay, so those will be held accountable. I'd like to see a drop cap in there. I think that would be a really neat addition to add to the visual engagement. The timeline itself isn't designed per se. I think it could be a little bit more. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so this entry belongs with this bomb, right? This entry belongs with this bomb. Now we're starting to shift to the right. This entry is pushed to the right. This even more. This one's even more. This one goes with this. This one. Now you see we're just really, really not following the timeline. My recommendation is to really design that timeline, okay? If I were a portfolio reviewer, or for sure when the time comes a hiring professional takes a look at this, it's one of the first things they're going to notice is that your timeline entries don't line up with the markers indicated by the bombs. I don't recall the bombs being used on the front of the poster. Therefore, this is a somewhat arbitrary decision to use the bombs unless you have incorporated them on the front of the poster. Now, I can't comment on adaptation or harmony between the front and the back because the front of the poster wasn't submitted here. Oh, by the way, USSR, that's all small. That's small caps, by the way. That's a good example of where you use small caps. Okay, as far as the layout goes, I think it's interesting. I think this cutout filter is really, really interesting. I would start this with Macau. I wouldn't start with his last name. I would start with his first name. You also might even consider adding his name somewhere, the laureate's full name somewhere as a title or something. That will definitely answer some questions to the viewer before they get started in the composition. And one more thing about the bombs, and we're talking about connotation, right? Now, um, Gorbachev was more of he was not a confrontational leader. Okay, so he didn't start wars, he didn't escalate wars. He was pretty much um, a peaceful minded leader. Okay, so that said, um, I think these bombs are sending a wrong signal. These bombs are, if we just look at this connotatively, these bombs are connected to him, meaning that the connection would be that he is prone to use these bombs, whereas we know that is not the truth. That's antithetical to his beliefs. He was more a peaceful man. So I'm very, very concerned about negative connotation therein. Okay. Other than that, I think we're looking good. If you have any questions at all, if I can provide any further clarification, please let me know. I'll be more than glad to do so. All right, great. Thank you very much.